Hello and welcome, this is Nightform. I'd like to show you guys all the robots that I've been building and collecting throughout the years. This is a tank which I built when I just started playing the game in 2016. Early 2016. Basically when I was building this, it started small. Started with small tank trucks and back then you had to level up. Basically, as you were leveling up, you could max out your robot to 1500 CPU. So as I was leveling up, I was just building this thing bigger and bigger, and I loved the rail setups back then. It was quite a great time. It was a really fun time back then. So yeah, this tank really stood its ground back in the day. It was very good. Some of the physics has changed and stuff, so it's just not like it used to be. You can still play it if you're in a team and you got some backup like healing and so on, but it's really difficult if you want to play it solo. So yeah, this was it's one of my oldest tanks and bots that I've got, and yeah. Okay, so up next we've got this bot. This was when I was still with Discordian Nekos. Basically this robot, I was playing it without strafe. It was just before the strafe update came into Robocraft. So it could move straight and around, and you would just shoot as you're spinning around. It was really strong with the when it changed Shredder and the ions just came out. They were quite buffed up. These things as well, the struts were really strong. So even at this low CPU, 1300, it was very powerful. And fast, so it was like lightweight and everything, but that's history now. You can't even play it anymore. Now here, this bot, okay, these DSMs don't belong here. I just added them back when this update came in, which said you're going to be limited to 100 bays, and you won't have mega bots. So some of us were just filling out some garage bays to max out that megabot on it for free. There was a lot of uncertainty back then about what was going on. So this bot originally had 3 of these small ions in here, and I think there was some module up here. Yeah, this thing was pretty good. It just ran on SMG. As you can see, it's only 1300 CPU, so it wasn't maxed out. But I think this was built pretty much when there was still the CPU for energy. So it had like a middle strength and an energy to it. It worked really well, very well. Okay, now this was just a joke bot, troll bot, which I've built. It was unfortunately just before the heavy cubes were introduced in Robocraft, so they were built with standard cubes, but I was trying to build something with like a maximum health in the shape of a heart, it's just for fun. But this is kind of unplayable, it's just too slow, and whatever you add to it, the CPU that you're left with, you just never get any speed, so that's hovers, one leg, it's just not fast enough. Okay, now this part I built when ions were introduced. This thing was just extreme, because when ions were just released, they were like so buff, they were super buff. You can still play this today, but it's going to be pretty tough to have fun with. Also, the redundancy back then was better. Like with two SMGs, we were able to just shoot all the time. It's kind of an odd bot in a way, but it did very well. Perhaps around 2017. Now, this was like an odd bot which I built. Physics changed throughout the years in Robocraft, but this thing flew really well as a plane. It's just an odd bot, but now that it can't fly, it didn't have health in the very first place that it was built, but now with the new updates and stuff, it has no health. One shot just kills everything, and it's unflyable. But it used to be good. See, that has like a flat floor. I think I added these other thrusters afterwards. It's meant to have a flat bottom, and you could fly on the floor, and it looked really cool. Now, this bot, as you can see, I added all this to upgrade the bay to a mega bay. But it was a really low CPU bot. So this thing was kind of designed to have a lot of energy, when it was still the energy for CPU. It's got a DSM to protect you, and because it didn't have all that much health, but it was doing so much damage. 3 rails were enough back then, 3 nanos. It was strong enough. Basically, back in the day, you could fly with this. Like, the way it flew, I don't know what it would do now. We'll test these later. But this was a fun mod. I believe it actually had a blink module in it sometime, I can remember. I'll check it out. Now, this was a really fun bot. I love this thing. I built it. It was really slow. There was a time in Robocraft where the gameplay was quite slow, and it moved like a big flying heavy tank, but it was alright. Today you can't play with such robots anymore. It's too slow, and it was really strong. I think there was a module in it somewhere. Oh yeah, you see, there was an update which came into Robocraft about a year or 2 ago, where you could only max out 3 different layouts of weapons. It used to be 5. And I think there used to be another module in here, DSM or something. And because of the updates, it had to be removed. So it would have been like 1500 CPU, and now it's at 1320. When they brought in the update for like max loadout, right? They actually made a big event out of it, saying like that like a big artwork and a big announcement, and then they just reverted it. Anyway, this was a bot by a clan member in Vikings that asked him to send me this bot because I saw him playing with it. I just kept it, I don't play with this in public. This was a bot made by Uroboros1. It was lightweight. I believe back then it was energy for CPU. This thing was a killer. It was really good. It did these fast flyby plasma drops, and from a distance you could fight with the SMG. It was really fun, and he had a way, like a talent to be able to place these thrusters in such a manner that it made the bot just great. Super light, but fast as it could be. This was also made by Ouroboros 1. It was a crazy healer. This thing had like three different, all three tiers of nanos. So back then, the way the energy and stuff was laid out, you would heal up with the large nanos, and as you get to your middle energy, you switch over to the mid-tier nanos, and as that energy drops, you change over to the small tier nanos, and then that like brought your energy back, and you would just chop and change through all three, and keep your teammates healed like crazy. And this thing was so fast and agile, so you were dodging a lot of shots. It was very fun, but it wasn't good for too long. Then some updates came in which killed. Drones weren't killed in those updates, but it killed this particular setup that used to be really fun. Now it's just a big bullseye in the sky because it can't move, unfortunately. This one was also built by Ouroboros 1. It's a nano SMG combination. It was quite fun as well. As you can see, the low CPU. It's got a lot of energy to go around in these things. This is an art bot which I built, which was meant to be a tornado. Basically, as the thrusters are placed, it spins around, so it's like a Tesla tornado on the field. It does work, it does do it, but and there's the ghost module, but it's just too slow and too big of a target to really do damage. But for art, it was alright. This is I believe I built this. I tried to copy Ouroboros' style and layout, and but it didn't really work. This thing was like too big and heavy. It just looked cool, but wasn't that effective. This is a first rendition of a mini drones that I was building. It did worked really well, but I wanted to go with something more compact than that. I think the next one I came up with, okay, this was the next one, but there's more. As you can see how compact the thrusters are inside. We'll get to, okay, this was another one I made. I can't remember them too well, but as you can see, the CPU is really low, 825. This was like a plasma killer, you know. This was a bot by which Straightfast used to play around a lot with, and he made this and uploaded it and called it history, you know, because it's part of our history. These things were not played with strafe. They are drones that were played with keyboard. You know, it's like the same as I said about the shredder. It was a keyboard bot, not a strafe bot, and they were really powerful. It's just what happened to me is that after playing strafe so long, I lost all my grip on playing with keyboard. I'll have to just spend quite a bit of time practicing it again. This is not the final rendition of the mini plasma bomber that I designed, but it's further up. I've been shifting these bots around quite a lot. This, I don't remember who this was built by, but it was really good back in the day. It's a strafe drone. Copty was also built by Ouroboros 1. This thing was really powerful. Back then, the Mega Hovers acted as shields. You know, could tank quite a bit of damage. This is a time, I think we were busy transitioning into the era of hovers, strafe hovers, SMG hovers, which could tank a lot of damage and do a lot of damage on SMG, and they were really fun to play with. So this is kind of an art rendition that I made of all the struts on here. Now this does work, but it tends to fall over quite a bit. It's like it's top heavy, you know. This was a mini rail bot which I built, and as you can see, the CPU to energy days, this thing worked very well. But it wasn't too long after I made this that there was some updates which came in which made it useless. I don't exactly remember exactly why. This is the mini drone which I built, the final rendition of that 848 CPU. It only weighed, I think back then it weighed less than 1600 kg. There's been so many updates with rods and stuff. Now, as you can see, this thing was super compact. Only had one helicopter rotor on the top. It was a dual plasma and SMG setup. So depending on who you were fighting, if you were fighting another drone, you'd fight with the SMGs, obviously also if you take down some mid-air Teslas. But the biggest damage it did was the plasmas. At 848 CPU, this thing dropped bombs like crazy, man. It wiped out the enemies, like surprise attacks, hit and run attacks. It was a killer altogether. Now, obviously this thing didn't tank too much damage. I think 3 hits from an SMG shot, and it was you had to then run away, try and escape and heal up. But it was good. It actually had a very good breakdown system. Like the way it broke down is that you were always left with some thrusters, and you'd be able to escape by shaking your mouse around. And this thing was very fun. I loved it, and I spent a lot of time designing it because it's super compact. It's just the design style. Now, some of my friends were playing with this. What it did, as you can see, there were some larger thrusters and smaller thrusters that had to be squeezed in here to get its size, you know. It was tilting over on it was kneeling over, like, and it had a strange look to it, but it was just part of the part of the coolness about it. I made some copies of it and placed, like, as you can see, this some shields that I placed on here, but that didn't help at all. Stupid. This was an enclosed design which I tried to make of this. I think the inside here is that, but I think it did work, but it was not as light as this. It wasn't as fast as that one would be. It tanked a bit more damage. I believe it was quite slow, and you didn't have all the energy anymore. But I think it wasn't long after this that there was an update on these cubes, and the thing just became too heavy to control this way. We'll test them later again. This is a bot. I can't remember the guy's name, but I think he was in Atlas Core, and he was a moderator on this bot. Was just absolutely brilliant, man. It was the most fun bot that I ever played with. I don't have the layout showing this or not, but this was a 5 layout robot. Yeah, as you can see, these 3 modules. yeah, so it's 5. Got 2 nanos here, had the SMGs, and it was loaded up with a Blink, DSM, EMP. This thing was just a beast, man. It flew and, I mean, it maneuvered so well. And the way it was designed by this guy, I remember his name now, it was Cluely. Yeah, this bot was built by Cluely. He was a great player and this bot was amazing. It wasn't overpowered, but it was just really fun to play with. It had an ingenious escape core in the center here. Like, if a bot gets destroyed, you're left with a central core that's perfectly intact with all the modules, just to be able to escape. And we would escape that way, and nothing was overpowered about this robot. It was just really fun. This was an ingenious design, and but unfortunately it didn't last too long until some new updates came in, which yeah, clearly was a great guy. Let's move on to the next one. This was also just a fun bot, like which I built. I see the low CPU, which is like a little hard bot, which did plasma attacks. But now it's just not balanced anymore. It just falls over all the time. This was a bot built by Zakantor from Vikings. It was really good for its time. It's still good today actually. But there was quite a bit of CPU still left over because it was built after some updates, I think. I've been trying to get it to fly, and once you lose this, the wings, and it's just not too good anymore. It was the hover updates which totally wrecked it. This was during the time where hovers were getting OP and overpowered. So I built this. This thing was a really good tank, but it was far too slow with all the mass. Even back then it was just too slow. Well, it was kind of fun, but not the best. This was a bot built by one of my friends. I can't remember exactly what his name was. We'll get back to that later. Also something built by Uroboros1. This thing, I think recently there's been these type of bots with these small shredders. But he built this so long ago. It was way before that became a thing, and this thing worked quite nicely. The only problem with it was a little bit low on the CPU. It was a CPU to energy thing still back then, and so it did work, but it didn't tank perfectly, you know. This was also a bot built by someone from Vikings. It was fun as well. This is a car which I built back in the day, but it was just for art, like, you know, it wasn't all that effective for me. I'm not used to playing with car bots. This is also a little sprinter which I built. I think this is in the age where fast moving sprinters were starting to become a thing. And I built this, it wasn't all that strong, very low CPU, but it had the hovers in it. It was like during the transition where sprinters were getting like hovers built into them. And yeah, it was kind of fun. I believe back then the sprinter legs had quite a bit of, they were a lot more agile and stronger than what they are today. So with the hovers together with the sprinter legs here, it was quite good. This thing I built as well as a joke bot, but wasn't all that strong. Was okay, but not that great. Yeah, this is one of the first, one of the first sprinters that I built, hover sprinters. I think there was a PSK at the top here, but when that update came in with the limits on their loadout, I had to remove it. This is a baby hover, which worked really well, I can remember. Try to convert it into a flying drone. This was a little hover which I made, an SMG hover. Yeah, I remember now, it was actually this thing which I updated with lecture plates, and but it didn't work. After I added all these lecture plates, it kind of killed the design. The weight became too much and didn't do it like it used to anymore. This, oh my word, am I remembering right? It was also built by Cluely. No, I'm mistaken. This was built. No, Straightfast had one built similar to this. And Cluely, I don't know if this is Cluely's one or Straightfast's one. Really fun. These things, this type of design, at some point was really powerful. A lot of the greatest players were playing with these things. I added these nanos. They didn't usually come with nanos. But it had a super tank design. The Mega SMG was doing crazy damage, and back then the helicopter rotors were really effective, you know. So it wasn't a drone really, or a strafe drone, but it was something really unique. And once you couldn't fly anymore, you had your MiG legs at the bottom to could still keep moving and fighting and stuff. Okay, this is something stupid which I made. Actually, I had 3 MiG legs. I don't know why I did this. I did this recently. Was it a low tier bot which I built once? For T3s and T4s, I think. I haven't played with this much. Okay, this was a mini strafe drone which I built. I think when drones were just before drones were totally nerfed. But this thing was super heavy. It wasn't like the fast kind of mini strafe drones, but it could tank a bit more damage. But I didn't play with it all that much. It was like a camera bot which I made for custom games and so on. But the problem is now with the new updates, this thing can't even move anymore like it was supposed to. I actually had a bot once. I think this is based off of that. It might actually have been the original. It was a bot, let me just show you guys. It was basically like this. It was super fast. It could go up and down at mega speeds, and it was like a plasma bomber. I believe it was a lot shorter than this. I don't know why I extended these things out so much. It was kind of like that, you know, with the plasmas on it. It was so fun to play. It had no health. Like, if you get hit once or twice, with any SMG, it just breaks apart. But as long as you had that advantage of a surprise attack, that's where the fun came in. I don't know who built this, but it was a really good strafe drone when drones were still functional back then. This thing was fun, which I built. It was I think there's other renditions of this, but this thing was super fast, crazy fast, and it could do low plasma drops. It couldn't fly. I added this wing afterwards. Now there was a time in Robocraft where you had these, I don't know if I have any of those spots here, but you had, without all these thrusters and nanos, and stuff that I made in my style, was just a big tanky hover with a mega SMG at the top and a ion at the bottom. So see if I don't know if I have one of those spots in here somewhere. It's a very good strafe drone built by Straightfast. This is that first bot which I showed you, which had the PSK in the middle. I just added this flak afterwards. That's a copy. This thing was kind of fun when hovers were still working. Yeah, and then I started building the sprinters. Started getting into hover sprinters. As you can see, these still had the larger mech legs. I mean sprinter legs. And there's the PSK in the middle. Now there would have been a power module in here. And there's hovers inside there. I can quickly show you. I believe this was when the CPU limit was 1750 when I built this. That was kind of fun days. The Goopy drone is really famous. I can't particularly remember the name of the player who built these, but I think they were in Atlas Core. And out of all the mini drones, the Goopy drone was the best to play with. So obviously it also didn't have the best health in the world, but it could tank a few shots and then try and escape. But the secret of it was the size. It was just too small to really get hit. But if you did get hit by a rail shot, say if you weren't moving fast enough to escape the shots, or if the other player was just too good or lucky, kind of got wrecked. This was a choke bot which I built. It didn't work. I think the first time I built it, it did work. As you can see, it's got light cubes, but it just blew apart from one hit from anything, and you couldn't even escape from that anymore. But like when it's at 100% health, it did fly quite nicely, but not effective in any real combat. This was a miniature. I tried to build the smallest sprinter that could be built, and this is what I could come up with. So I had all the thrusters and props on it. Yeah, it's like kind of a very tiny sprinter, and it worked well, but it didn't tank too well. Yeah, these here you can see one of the era where SMG hovers was a thing. This is what most of them looked like. It came down to talent, how well could you build these things, And also everyone had their own particular playstyle. So some would have liked them to be faster and more agile, meaning they'd have less health. Some would have more health and they're slower. But yeah, also came with a module. Some of them. This was a really fun time in Robocraft. This is that same little mini strafe drone which I built. Another rendition of it. This was supposed to be a, I think a hover. And then I added these mechanics on it. It's just it's a joke bot now. This was built by my friend who's in Vikings. It was built by Return X24 Trackner. He was a really good player. Me and him together were like a double dragon team in Robocraft. Was just after Straight Fast stopped playing so actively, and he built this. He was really great with this. As you can see, it didn't have the full CPU. Just copies of old stupid bots. This was a lightweight strafe drone which I tried to build. It was after they were nerfed, and it couldn't work with the rotors anymore. And this thing worked, but because it was built with light cubes, it couldn't tank any damage either, and it's kind of useless. Unless you could land the first shots, it kind of worked, but to say another sprinter, hover sprinter, which I made. This was a Mega SMG hover. This thing worked well. It's just with the updates now, it can't tank any damage anymore. But it was really agile, fast, did a lot of damage. These are those other hovers which I was talking about. This used to be a thing as well. The mirror. So you had your ion at the bottom and your Mega SMG at the top. This one I built, it was really good. It's kind of good. But it's just good while it lasted, you know. This is the hover which I built, which I played with for quite a long time. You know, it survived through quite a few updates. This was actually built before SMG hovers became a thing. It was kind of a thing by itself. Somewhere at the back here, I had a. You see the loadout's maxed already, but it used to be in the days where we didn't have to. Yeah, I think it was like that. So it had your flak there, SMGs on the sides, iron at the bottom. I built this way before these bots became a meta. You know, it was a meta by itself. Wasn't the strongest that there was, but it survived very well and played really well. It's another hover which I made. This is just another sprinter hover. It's fun as well. I just added these wings. Makes it look kind of dope from the distance, you know, because these sort of look like legs. So it's just a joke bot. This was some kind of a strafe drone thing that I tried to make, but it didn't work. The nerves were too strong. Yeah, it's just a glitch bot which I play with in test mode. Just breaks the game. This was built by Return X24 as well. He was really good with this bot. It was a meta by itself. He made it a meta. Not everyone could play this style. He was perfect at it. This is This is quite a good hover sprinter which I built. That's really good, this thing, because of the speed that it had. This is just a meta bot made by VV. I play with this thing quite a bit. It's really good, but it's been nerfed quite a lot. It's not like it used to be originally. These lecture plates tanked like so much damage. Now it's just not the same anymore, but it's still very fun. This thing was like a super speedy healer, which I tried to make. Unfortunately, it couldn't tank any damage. But if you had a teammate in the distance that needed healing, you could get to him quite fast and run back if you needed to. But it wasn't so effective against good enemy players. They just tear it apart quite quickly. This was a maxed out speed sprinter hover with just a mega rail, so everything was just based around speed. And it is really fast even now, and it's playable. It comes with a DSM and a power module. This was built by my friend TR. I play with this a lot. Still today it's very effective. He said it's just his first rendition of it, but it's perfect. Nothing on this needs to be changed. It's the most fun bot I've ever played with as well. It's like, if you're not killing your opponents, you're healing your teammates, and it did its job really well. Even now, this is just like a boredom bot. If you're really bored, you can play around with this. Just heal your teammates, run around. If you don't feel like being too competitive, but it can't fly. That's the downside of it. But still fun a bit nonetheless. This is the very famous Tesla. It's one of the best Teslas I've ever played with. The movement on it is perfect. I was just messing around with like trying to put little plasmas on it, and unfortunately plasma has just been nerfed so much. It's not like it used to be. Not too long ago, you could do quite a lot of huge plasma volleys. I was thinking that something like this, that's got the ghost mode, and which could do plasma volleys, but that was just nerfed. That's history now. This was a hover sprinter, flying sprinter, which I made. It was good, but not the best. Still good though. I don't know what this is for. I found it in the CRF. It had my name on it. I have no idea where it came from or why they put it up there. But I downloaded it anyway. This was also made by VV. This was one tank thing back in the day, like about a year ago. Of all the tank sprinters, flying sprinters you could get, this thing was the tankiest that existed. This was another, what's this one? I don't know, but this is one that was built for me. Yeah, this was built for me by Rubicon Ranger. Rubicon Ranger built this for me. That's really nice. The thing is that it could tank quite a bit of damage. That's what the upside was. So he used my style, so I asked him to apply some of my techniques into his own techniques, and we came up with this. This was also built by Ouroboros 1. It had a mega rail and an ion on the side. This thing is really good. It's also almost like a top secret bot. No one knows about it, but it's like a strafe drone. And the way Rubicon built this is like it tanks damage like crazy. You know, like your opponents see this thing flying around and they're like, oh, one Mega Rail hit can kill it or something, and after 8 hits it's still flying around and it's killing them, you know. Okay, this I built myself. This was actually meant to be, let me show you guys what this was supposed to be. I try to make a mortar design like this, so you have all this tank in the front, your Mega Rail for distance, and you would be able to mortar your enemies. The thing is that the electroplates, the way it's built here, blocks the mortar shots, you know, because there was an update which they brought in once. After mortars were released the first time, you could shoot it into yourself and create the explosion. So some players were running into enemies and just shooting themselves and creating a huge explosion, killing everyone that's around. And so the devs supposed, you know, it's illegal, so they just changed it that if the mortar hits the body, it cancels the shot. So unfortunately, if you're trying to shoot like just a little bit like there, it's getting cancelled out, you know. So I built this whole thing just to find out that that would happen afterwards. So the only other thing that worked on here was this, you know. You could also add an ion on there, but then you can only shoot like if you're going to be shooting your opponents at an angle, and you're losing quite a bit of distance as well. So the base thing for it now, could save it at least, is with a Lommel. Wasn't the intended purpose of it, but it turned out to be quite fun as well, this way. This is what I built. The sprinter you saw from Rubicon, this is what he took from me and designed that one for me this way, you know. I felt that if you have some tank on the back and the front, you could maneuver with it and play with it. I did really well with this. I love the speed it had, you know. This was built for me by Cormy. So he took this and redesigned the interior to be a little more, you know, in a way. There's three different renditions of this. There's the one by Cormy and there's the one by Rubicon Ranger. Okay, everyone knows this bot. It's a very famous healer bot. Really good. I love this. Even today still it works really well. This, I didn't build this. It was built by one of Straight Fast's friends. I just changed the color on it. And I inverted it, I think. At the Mega Rail on this side and the Iron on that side. Very good tanky bot, which I used during some of the tournament matches. It worked brilliantly. I think a lot of people should know this one as well. This is a very good bot. It's really fun to play with. I did modify it a little bit. I feel that it's better this way. Now, when it comes to my own builds, sprinter builds and stuff, I think this is the best one that I ever made. It's got a hell of a lot of agility and speed. And it tanks a lot of damage. Even as it is now, with the nerfs to electroplates and stuff, as you can see, this thing, I didn't max it out on electroplates. So it's just got just enough electroplates to actually make it great. Um, so yeah. I really love this bot, and I used it in the tournaments as well. And there's a little Easter egg for some players when we're playing, or at the end of the match, you know. Really compact. I believe there was a recent update which made stacking hovers, you know, give your bot like so much speed. So I tried to change it a bit into this, but this didn't work so well. You need actually to stack like quite a lot more hovers to make it work. This is just before these electroplated flying sprinters became a thing. I had this maxed out speed type of sprinter. This thing also didn't tank too much damage, but it was so fast that it didn't need to. But that wasn't the final rendition of my bots I made. This was another one I made. It works really well with the larger sprinter legs nowadays. And this one is, I don't know which one it is. I have some renditions of these which work quite well. And some of my flags, plutonium, gold and silver. That thing I can't click. It's just like this crazy megabot that tanks your graphics card. This is a joke thing which I built as well. Actually based on my own car in a way. Okay, and this was built by an anonymous player. Said he'd like to remain anonymous in the game. Now this thing is kind of like my own bots in a way. It doesn't have all that much tank, but it's got the speed. It's got like crazy speed, and he played really well with this. This was built by Archos, Archimedes. It's a crazy good bot which we used in the tournaments. Yeah. Right, so this looks like it's all my bots. Unfortunately, there's like hundreds of bots, or at least I'd say a lot more bots that's been lost because of the bay limit at 100. The 100 bay limit, and so I had to cancel bots throughout the years and lose bots. I'd like to have kept everything. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to. But yeah, these are the bots that I have in my garage. Now let's have a look at the factory. I want to search my own bots. There's quite a handful of them that's now been expired. Okay, so that's that rendition. So I've also had things like this built. This thing didn't have too much health, but it had quite a bit of speed. It was crazy. It was quite fun to play with. I have this. As you can see, these bots are not in my own CRF, unfortunately, and I lost them. But this was quite nice to play with. It's Veritas. Can't believe that this thing is still here. I must have built this, wow, about 2 or 3 years ago. It's crazy that it's still around. I didn't even play with this thing much. I just built it once, played with it once, and uploaded it. And these are those skin. It's about 20 bots here that's missing. They must have all expired, unfortunately. So this is that tank which I built around 2016. As you can see, it's not a strafe tank, and that's how I played it back then, and worked really well. The thing about this is that it was able to tank damage like crazy. So if you ran into towers, we used to have towers back then. You could like steal a tower without dying. Your opponents were trying to shoot you and kill you, and they wouldn't be able to before at least capture the tower. And, it was so fun. It was a lot of fun back then. This is my little shredder bot, which I used to play with Scorpion Nekos back in the day. And as you can see nowadays, if you're gonna be playing with it, it's just has no. It's just falling over. It never used to be like this. And I didn't play it with strafe. I played it on the keyboard, and it was a lot faster than this. And if I remember correctly, the shredder had a lot more energy than this as well. It was before the energy CPU updates came in, so it actually came and went. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. This is the strafe drone which I built. The loadout is wrong though. It should start with SMG. Anyway, as you can see how it's flying, it's tilted. But it worked really well like this, and I must say, now that I'm playing it, might have been quite some recent updates. This thing feels a lot more agile. Yeah, but it's gonna die with one hit though. Now just to give you an idea, imagine the plasma is firing at like 4 times a second for 5 seconds straight. That's the kind of hit and runs you could do with this. So just go like boom, boom, and kill your enemy, run away. Their teammates are chasing you and you're just like hiding, and then your friends come along and you've escaped already. And then in the distance you just like helping to kill them all. And since it's so small, they like just either wasting their energy on you or don't bother to shoot at you. And this thing is a lot more agile than this. It's quite agile now again, but imagine it like at least 3 times faster than that. Yeah, this thing was quite fun to play with. Yeah, unfortunately I don't have time to show all my bots in action. But yeah, that's a handful of the bots that I've built throughout the years and collected, and great time we had in Robocraft, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. Most of the players have left the game. Great players have left, and not much left. And these are my weapons. Now unfortunately all this would have been purple, everything would have been quite a high rank. It's just that they introduced this quite late in the game, about a year or 2 ago, and they started this when I started playing. Everything would have been well over 30,000 and more. So my T5 Ion is maxed out. T5 Rail, the laser, T4 Tesla, T4 nanos, and yeah, everything I would say, like the flak would have been purple, this would have been well over 20 or 30,000. Let's say nanos would have been over 50,000 or something. As well as the T4 SMG, that should have been at least 50,000 or so. Unfortunately, even the main ranking, mine would have been at least 300k or more, 350 about maybe. This thing started from the get-go, you know. And yeah, that's it, guys. It's my whole account and my years that I've been playing this game. This is everything that I have. Also the levels, which is quite an interesting thing. When it was first introduced about 4 years ago, everyone asked, okay, why is it going to be limited to 10,000? And people said, oh, it's going to take so long to reach 10,000, it's like not even worth thinking about it, you know. And there's so many players like me that's reached 10,000 like over a year ago, 2 years ago already. This could have been 15 or 20,000 by now. But yeah, it was capped there, unfortunately. So in the future, if you ever want to cap anything, don't cap it or make it something just totally crazy, because it doesn't help to cap it. Yeah. Alright guys, thanks, that's about it. For my robots and stuff that I've had throughout the years. Hope you enjoyed it. See you guys later.